Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, Katan, we're going to talk a lot about the war in Ukraine, but it's not just the fighting that is impacting people, as we're going to see. It's the production there of Ukraine and Russia and how that affects the food supply. So Ukraine's agriculture production is a bigger problem for the world than it might seem at first glance. Well, we recently reported that parts of Europe and Africa, as well as Middle Eastern countries, are dependent on supplies of wheat and corn from the Eastern European nation. Now, we start off this report with more information on just how much the world relies on Ukraine for food production and how the war with Russia is affecting that. Please pay close attention to this video.
Food warehouses burned to the ground in Ukraine. Supermarket shelves emptied globally. The effect of Russia's war in Ukraine isn't just affecting people in the country, but around the world. Ukraine and Russia, between them, produce 53% of the world's sunflower oil and seeds and 27% of its wheat. To put that into perspective, if current supplies of sunflower oil run out, Belgium runs out of the ability to make French fries. If wheat supplies run low, Lebanon could run out of bread along with Egypt and Tunisia, and 27 African countries could face wheat shortages. With Russia under tough sanctions and its food exports severely restricted, and the war also stopping Ukrainian exports, businesses are under pressure.
There are also crimes against Ukrainian agricultural production, different branches of the production. The biggest challenge that Ukrainian agrarians are facing is to plant the fields in time. 82,500 square kilometers of Ukrainian land is mined. This means we need much time for demining these lands.
TAS Agro is a big agribusiness in Ukraine. Its director says it will be affected if the war doesn't end soon, but it is taking action.
The situation with the war is changing constantly. However, we created so-called crisis teams and are preparing actively for sowing, which starts soon.
The war has destroyed agribusiness in the east of Ukraine, and only fields in the south and west can be planted. But even then, forecasts indicate supply and labor shortages mean only half of those fertile fields will be cultivated. In July, this wheat field will be ready for harvest. It's a crucial part of Ukraine's economy. However, will they be able to get this wheat onto a boat and out to international markets, given the situation? Russia has blocked ports on the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. About 13.5 million tons of wheat and 16 million tons of corn are sitting in the docks. Combined with the war and the sanctions against Russia, that's led to food prices rising everywhere, and the longer this conflict goes on, the higher they'll get.
It's very interesting, Katan, to see just how much wheat is produced by those two countries alone, and now they're at war, so we see how this is going to greatly affect the food supply.
Yes, 30% is quite a bit. Well, famine is a word that we usually only hear when talking about regions in the world that are in severe drought. But some U.S. senators, along with Ukrainian experts, as well as Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelensky, are saying the war is going to bring about a man-made famine. Let's take a listen to their warning.
Joni Ernst, along with Ukrainian civil society and former Ukrainian parliament member Hanna Hopko. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. Senator Ernst, this is really scary. I want to start with you. You hosted this meeting yesterday with Kansas Senator Roger Marshall was there as well. And I spoke with Roger Marshall on this program last month about global food and a crisis caused by this war. I want you to listen to what he told me, and I got to get your reaction. Watch this.
I'm a big agriculture guy. 12-15% of the agriculture products, corn and wheat, sunflower oil, come through that Black Sea. And fertilizers come from that area as well. So there actually is going to be a famine.
A famine? Senator, I have not heard the word famine in years. Your thoughts on what's going on now as a result of this war?
Yes, thank you, Maria. And it's great to be joined by Dr. Hopko this morning as well. Senator Marshall and I did host this meeting yesterday here at the Capitol, and he is absolutely correct. About 40 to 45% of the production in Ukraine will be decreased this year because of the war and the scarcity of supplies that go into the planting season. And we know that Ukraine also supports about 400 million people around the world with its food products. So we do see that we have an impending famine. And I've heard from David Beasley at the World Food Bank that he's now going to have to take from the hungry to feed the starving. He's now going to have to take from the hungry to feed the starving. He's now going to have to take from the hungry to feed the starving.
What can you do about it, Senator?
Well, again, I think that we all agree the quickest way to address this situation is for Ukraine to actually win this war so that they can get back to whatever normal is after this invasion. But simply supporting them with the lethal aid is a step forward. Additional sanctions on Russia, a step forward. But then there are ways that we can help provide diesel fuel, which is necessary for the planting season in Ukraine, because all of their diesel fuel is going towards the war effort. We can assist with other types of planting measures, but there are many things we can do. But bottom line, Maria, Ukraine must win this war and win it quickly.
Senator, you make so many important points. I want to come back to that and ask you about the weaponry that they need and why they don't have it. But Dr. Hopko, let me switch gears and get your take on what we're seeing on the ground and what the consequences are of this. You heard Roger Marshall call it famine.
Famine, it's a word well known in Ukraine because in last century, Stalin organized artificial hunger, famine. It's genocide against Ukrainian people. And now Putin is using Russian aggression against Ukraine to organize a famine worldwide. Why? Because if Ukraine planting season is at risk, it means that people in Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, which depends on Ukrainian food, corn, sunflower, wheat, so they will face hunger and there will be a refugee crisis. And this is why I agree with Senator Ernst that the faster we receive weapons, we unblock Ukrainian ports, because many American companies, they bought millions of tons of wheat and other agriculture commodities, and now it's stuck in the Odessa and other ports of Ukraine. And we need anti-ship weapons and also to demine the Black Sea, what Russians also are doing. They are creating economical and global food crisis.
I mean, Ukrainian President Zelensky told the Irish Parliament yesterday that targeted Russian strikes are aiming to destroy civilian infrastructure, cause widespread hunger. Listen to this.
They also consider hunger as their weapon against us ordinary people, as a tool to dominate. Ukraine is one of the leading countries in the global food market. Without our exports, it is not simply a shortage, but a threat of famine for more than a dozen countries in Africa and Asia. They also consider hunger as their weapon against us ordinary people, as a tool to dominate. Ukraine is one of the leading countries in the global food market. Without our exports, it is not simply a shortage, but a threat of famine for more than a dozen countries in Africa and Asia.
I mean, now we're talking about famine and food shortages. Yes. Do you think maybe the administration might want to shift priorities toward getting production facilities back to America so that we don't have to rely on foreigners for our food as well as our medicine, rather than prioritizing electric vehicles?
Well, as the senator quoted David Beasley there saying that he's going to have to take from the hungry to feed the starving, that gives you a little bit of an insight there on just how bad he's looking at this outcome going to be.
Yeah, and the world food crisis has been gradually getting worse every year, especially as droughts, floods, and wars continue to take place.
Well, another food supply shortage is looming in the United States, a bird flu pandemic that consumers are rarely hearing about. Now, in just 2 months' time, almost 17 million birds have already died due to the disease. Now, watch this next video to see where the future of poultry farming, both large and small, is headed.
Can you imagine what this country is going to look like if we have severe shortages of chicken and turkey by the end of the year? I don't know why more people are not alarmed about the horrific bird flu pandemic that's sweeping across America like wildfire right now. On February 8th, the very first case of highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, was confirmed in a domestic U.S. flock. Just over 1 month later, March 9th, we released a video that lamented the fact that almost 2.8 million birds, mostly chickens and turkeys, had already died during the first month of the pandemic. Unfortunately, since that time, things have gotten much, much worse. This pandemic is not even 2 months old yet, and yet the death toll for chickens and turkeys has now risen to nearly 17 million birds. If this many chickens and turkeys have been wiped out already, what will the death toll be a few months down the road? And what will this mean for the price of food? Just think about how often you eat products that contain eggs, chicken, or turkey. If you had to suddenly remove all of them from your diet, what would you do? The frightening thing is that bird flu just keeps popping up in more places around the country, and nobody can tell us why it is spreading so rapidly. In fact, the USDA just announced 5 more outbreaks. The United States Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, APHIS, has confirmed the presence of highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, in a non-commercial, mixed species backyard flock, non-poultry, in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. A non-commercial, mixed species backyard flock, non-poultry, in Johnson County, Wyoming. A commercial poultry flock in Johnston County, North Carolina. A non-commercial backyard chicken flock, non-poultry, in Franklin County, Ohio, and a non-commercial backyard chicken flock poultry in Kidder County, North Dakota. And we've just learned that this pandemic has also now reached the state of Oklahoma. State officials say they're investigating the first case of avian influenza in Oklahoma's wild bird population. Officials with the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food and Forestry say a wild duck in Payne County is the first wild bird in Oklahoma to be confirmed to be infected with Eurasian H5 type of highly pathogenic avian influenza. According to Dr. Rod Hall, state veterinarian for Oklahoma, I encourage poultry owners of all kinds to continue to remain vigilant, practice good biosecurity, and report sick or dying birds immediately. Symptoms of HPAI in poultry include the following: decrease in water consumption, lack of energy, lack of appetite, decreased egg production, soft-shelled misshapen eggs, nasal discharge, coughing, sneezing, incoordination, and diarrhea. Experts stress that the virus can also cause sudden death in birds, even if they're not showing symptoms. Dr. Hall said, "We're asking that anyone involved with poultry or egg production, from large farms all the way down to backyard flock, review and implement their biosecurity practices to ensure the health and well-being of their flocks." Overall, cases of highly pathogenic avian influenza have now been confirmed in 23 different U.S. states. This plague is completely and utterly out of control, and the word catastrophic is not nearly strong enough to describe what we are witnessing. According to Bloomberg, the total death toll for chickens and turkeys has now reached nearly 17 million. A deadly strain of bird flu that's been raising egg prices ahead of Easter was discovered in 5 new U.S. states on Wednesday, and the virus increasingly is threatening American poultry exports. Highly pathogenic avian influenza was discovered at a commercial poultry farm in Johnston County, North Carolina, and in backyard flocks in Massachusetts, North Dakota, Ohio, and Wyoming, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said in a release. Since mid-January, it's been found in 23 states in flocks totaling nearly 17 million birds. Once a single bird tests positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza, the entire flock must be put down. Once a single bird tests positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza, the entire flock must be put down. In other words, not a single bird can be left alive. Needless to say, those that raise chickens and turkeys all over the nation are scared out of their minds right now. I just heard from a farmer that has about 400,000 chickens, and bird flu has been detected not too far from where his facility is located. What would you do if you were in his shoes? It just isn't practical to try to relocate 400,000 chickens. And even if you could, where would you go? This flu is seemingly everywhere. There are no easy answers, and the outlook becomes more grim with each passing day.
Now, you heard them use the word biosecurity in the video several times. What that's referring to is the trying to stop the spread or introduction of any viruses or bacteria into the plants, or in this case, animals. So, they're all saying that everybody needs to take as many measures as possible to prevent these diseases to reaching these flocks, because, as they said, if one bird is contaminated, they have to wipe out the entire flock.
And that's a great task to try to accomplish, especially when you deal with some of these farms that just have thousands upon thousands of birds, and you have to be careful with so many people interacting with the birds and leaving there and going to other places. It's very easy to bring some type of contaminant to one flock.
Right, 400,000 birds like the one man had.
Wow. Well, the Asqua Mosque, situated on the Temple Mount in East Jerusalem, has been a source of contention for Israelis and Palestinians for decades. Now, once again, tensions are flaring as dozens of Palestinians are injured after confrontations with Israeli police. The Israelis had entered the grounds near the Asqua Mosque to secure it for a group of Jewish visitors. They made the claim that Palestinian protesters were waiting for them with stones and fireworks.
17 Palestinians were injured in the clash, and 2 more were arrested. Now, Palestinians accused the Israelis of using excessive force on civilians and have said the police escorts are meant to provoke fighting. A few days earlier, 150 Palestinians were injured in similar clashes with Israeli police who were wearing riot gear.
Well, at the same time, 3 of the world's main religions focused on celebrating their holy days, for Muslims Ramadan, Judaism, Passover, and Catholics, Easter. The Pope spoke to a crowd at St. Peter's Square for the first time since COVID came on the scene. He implored the nation, saying, "May Israelis, Palestinians, and all who dwell in the holy city together with pilgrims experience the beauty of peace, dwell in fraternity, and enjoy free access to the holy places in mutual respect of the rights of each," end quote.
Well, now turning back to Europe and the war in Ukraine, the United States is rushing to send huge amounts of aid to the country as Russia begins another full-scale attack, this time on the Donbas region stretching from the southern tip some 300 miles to Kharkiv in the north. Now, according to the Pentagon, Russia has sent an additional 13 battalion tactical groups there.
Well, targets are not military in nature, but civilian areas and humanitarian quarters have had to shut down. Ukrainian forces have settled in and say they have been able to repel Russian forces so far and will continue to put up a fierce fight.
Well, in Yemen, famine is affecting everyone. An estimated 285 million people face starvation. Now, David Beasley, the head of the World Food Program, said that the world already was facing a catastrophe for food before the war with Ukraine, and now it's only going to get worse.
That's right. Well, many nations who depend on the food program are at a 50% ration table because there's not enough food to go around, leaving the other 50% to starve. Well, food has risen globally by 10%, which is the sharpest rise in 40 years, and experts believe it's going to lead to malnutrition throughout the world. Russia and Ukraine produce almost 1/3 of the world's wheat, but Ukraine farmers have been sidelined, of course, by the war, and Russia has banned exports, so not getting it from either country.
All right. Well, Beasley said they've got to get planting again and harvesting again, because if they don't, we're going to have a global supply problem. Fertilizer prices are also 40% higher than before the invasion of Ukraine, making it impossible for some farmers to even afford to plant crops. Now, droughts and flooding have also hurt planting and harvesting.
Well, according to the president and CEO of Bread for the World, Eugene Cho, an estimated 98% of the population of Afghanistan do not have enough food to eat. That is over 1 million. That means over 1 million children under the age of 5 could die by the end of this year.
Well, Beasley warns that the world's food crisis could spur into a political crisis as well.
Well, take a look at this next video of the Dan Bongino show as he warns and pleads with his listeners about food shortages, prices, and what they should do.
The food crisis coming up. It's a topic we've covered on the show and the radio show often. There is a devastating food crisis coming, ladies and gentlemen, and you darn well better be prepared. Listen, I care about you a lot. I'm not kidding. I love the audience. It's why there's an email on our website. That's why I leave the Facebook page open for your messages. I am here for you. I am one of you. I came from you. I'm a middle-class kid who had a middle-class job with a middle-class life, who just in the last few years happened to be blessed enough with all the things you've given me. I care about you. This show is always about you. And the minute I don't care, I'm going to stop because my life is over and has no meaning anymore. I'm telling you, the biggest crisis of our time financially is the inflation crisis, which is parlaying into a food crisis as well. It is going to get worse. You know, I can't stand Axios, but Axios Markets put some decent stuff out once in a while. I'm on their email list, and I saw this morning. The inflation index measures a basket of food commodities, cereals, vegetable oils, dairy, meat, and sugar. Folks, the prices of this stuff are exploding. But here's the point I want to take. Check this out on the screen here if you're watching on Rumble. Here's the part that's important. Yeah, we know food prices are high, Dan. That's not breaking news. They note, here's what's next. The U.S. is also struggling with rising food prices, and expect to hear more about this later this morning when the March consumer price index is released, because Ukraine, they're unable to plant crops, folks. The leading sunflower oil exporter and top grain supplier, they're all saying this is going to drag into next year. They're unable to plant crops. What I'm telling you is we're still living off the grain sunflower oil supply from pre-Ukraine Russia invasion. You think it's bad now. It's going to get worse because it's expensive now, and there's even less in the pipeline for the coming months and years. Please prepare. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. There's a difference. Let me throw a couple more factors in here indicating to you how bad this food crisis is going to get. And man, Tuesday, April 12th, 9:31, I hope and pray I'm wrong. Please, God, I'm not using your name in vain. Please tell me I'm wrong. Ukraine's crushing they were a major wheat supplier. That hasn't even hit us yet because next year's crop is yet to be planted. Second, Biden yesterday, in a moment of peak desperation, in an effort to try to stem the increasing cost of gas, said he's going to allow 15% ethanol blends in the summer, which is typically, but they don't do that. Well, what does that have to do with food prices? Well, where does ethanol come from, folks? Well, corn. You're in the middle of a food crisis. You're going to put your food in your gas tank? I got to be honest with you, man, I'd rather eat than drive my car. It both sucks not being able to afford either one. But if it comes out to food, drive, I'll take the food. Combine that with the 26 million person prison camp in Shanghai, China. 26 million people not working and producing products used around the world. That's a city over twice the size of New York City, Shanghai, China, locked down due to COVID in the Chinese Communist Party prison camp. Folks, I'm telling you, I can't warn you in strong enough terms. Go out and get some extra stuff. I know people are struggling. I know it's expensive, but I deeply, deeply care about you, your issues. The only reason I do this show. Please prepare.
Well, he's one of, seems like many that are starting to see a trend right now with food, the lack of availability, and the increase in prices, which of course is putting a huge burden on everyone financially and the economy as well. We're dealing with Russia and Ukraine. We're seeing prices increase with food in general. We're seeing skyrocketing prices of fuel, and he's just one of many that are actually warning his listeners that they need to do something if they want to be prepared for what's coming.
And as you said, there's a lot of people seeing the seriousness of the situation with the food, but it's not just one avenue, it's everything combined that's leading to what they call a perfect storm for a food crisis that the world isn't going to be able to recover from very quickly.
That's right. And even though Mr. Bongino is warning his viewers, Yisrael Hawkins has been warning the world for over 40 years of what prophecy has shown. Actually, thousands of years ago, those prophecies show that we're going to be in this time period where it's going to be very difficult to buy and sell anything. Well, if you'd like to know what to do to prepare yourself for the upcoming shortage of pretty much everything and how you can do what you need to do to become righteous, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to ask for your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also check out our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you'd like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@yahweh.com. For any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And if you haven't yet seen the Yisrael Says program or the Ask Yisrael program, we encourage you to do so by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Make sure you have pencil, paper, and your scriptures, because up next with a very informative message that is sure to benefit you and your family, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.